Millionaire took his ugly secretary to dinner and was left breathless when she looked like a goddess. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's go back to our main character. Elena Moore has spent 3 years learning how to disappear. Every morning she arrives 10 minutes early, slides into her chair, and becomes part of the background hum of Vale Holdings, the quiet click of keyboards, the low murmur of money moving through glass offices. She knows which emails to flag, which meetings to cancel, and when Adrian Vale prefers his coffee black without sugar. She also knows he has never once really looked at her. To Adrian, Elena is a function, a pair of hands that organize his world while he builds it taller and colder. People call her plain when they think she cannot hear. They call her awkward when she keeps her eyes down and her hair tucked forward like a curtain. Elena lets them, because being unseen feels safer than being judged. Adrian Vale runs his company the way he runs his life, efficient, controlled, allergic to surprises. He believes excellence speaks for itself and that emotions are distractions best left outside the boardroom. When he walks past Elena's desk, he registers tasks completed, not the person who completed them. He does not notice the sketchbook hidden in her bag, or the way her fingers trace invisible lines when she is thinking. 2 weeks before the dinner, everything seems settled in its usual order. Adrian is scheduled to attend a high-stakes dinner with potential investors at a restaurant overlooking the river, a place where deals are sealed between bites of steak and glasses of bourbon. His expected companion cancels that afternoon with a brief text and a polite excuse. The table is reserved, the optics matter, and Adrian dislikes empty chairs. He steps out of his office, eyes scanning for a solution, and they land on Elena without recognition, just necessity. "You're coming with me tonight," he says, already turning away, as if the decision requires no discussion. Elena's stomach tightens. She opens her mouth to refuse, then closes it. Rent is due. The job matters. She nods once, quietly, and watches him walk back into his glass box. The invitation is not a kindness. It is a command. That night begins like any other, with Elena standing in her small apartment, staring at herself in the mirror, wondering how a woman can be seen every day and still remain invisible. She reaches for a simple dress, smooths her hair back, and makes a choice that feels less like transformation and more like permission. She does not know yet that this dinner will fracture the careful distance between her and the man who has never learned her silence, or that the room waiting across the river is about to notice what he has always missed. Outside, traffic hums and the city glows, unaware of the fragile decision taking shape. Elena breathes in, counting seconds the way she does before difficult calls, grounding herself. Somewhere across town, Adrian straightens his jacket, confident, certain the evening will pass like all others, efficient and forgettable. He has no idea the space between them is about to narrow, not through noise or spectacle, but through stillness. Tonight, she will sit where she was never meant to belong, and the world will pause long enough to feel it. This is how change begins, quietly, when one person steps into the light without asking permission, and another realizes too late that he has been standing in the dark. It will echo in memories, glances, and choices, reshaping futures in ways neither of them can predict, yet with irreversible consequences ahead. The truth is, Elena Moore has always known exactly where she stands in Adrian Vale's world, even before tonight ever existed. Her days begin before sunrise, when the city is still quiet and forgiving, and she rides the elevator up to the 42nd floor with her shoulders slightly rounded, as if making herself smaller might help her fit into a place that was never designed for her. At Vale Holdings, everything reflects Adrian's philosophy: glass walls, sharp lines, muted colors, nothing unnecessary, nothing emotional. Elena moves through it like a whisper. She manages calendars that shift by the minute, fields calls from people who believe their urgency should outrank everyone else's, and absorbs criticism meant for Adrian without ever redirecting it. When mistakes happen, she fixes them before they become visible. When successes happen, her name is not attached to them. This is the unspoken agreement she lives by. Adrian Vale does not ask about her mornings, her evenings, or the faint smudge of graphite sometimes left on her fingers. He sees output, not origin. In his mind, Elena is reliable, replaceable, and permanently in the background, and that certainty allows him to move through his days without friction. He prides himself on clarity, on knowing exactly who people are and what they are worth, and Elena has never challenged that assessment. She dresses plainly because attention feels dangerous. She keeps her voice soft because silence protects her. Years ago, she learned that being noticeable invited commentary she did not want to survive again. There was a time, before corporate hallways and fluorescent lights, when Elena believed beauty could be something created, not worn. She used to draw late into the night, charcoal dust on her hands, imagining worlds where women like her were allowed to take up space. That life dissolved quietly after one too many remarks about her appearance, one too many suggestions that talent mattered less if the messenger was easy to ignore. So she folded herself inward and chose stability over visibility. Adrian never sees that part of her because he never looks long enough. Their interactions are brief and transactional. He gives instructions. She executes them. Occasionally, his tone sharpens, not from cruelty but from impatience, and Elena absorbs it without reaction. The office watches this dynamic without question. To them, it makes sense. Adrian belongs at the center, commanding attention. Elena belongs at the edge, supporting the structure without becoming part of it. This is the world before the dinner, balanced and unchallenged. When Adrian asks her to join him, it does not feel like a turning point yet. It feels like another task, another line added to a long list of obligations. She spends the afternoon finishing reports, rescheduling meetings, and pretending her pulse is not racing every time she thinks about sitting beside him in a room designed to display power. Adrian, meanwhile, does not think about Elena at all. He assumes she will appear on time, dressed appropriately, and behave as expected. His focus remains on leverage, negotiation, and perception. He believes perception is something he controls. He does not consider how it feels to be seen only when convenient, or how silence can calcify into something heavier over time. Elena leaves the office at the usual hour, steps into the evening air, and pauses for a moment on the sidewalk. The city hums around her, indifferent and vast. She understands now that this dinner is not about her presence, but about his image. Still, somewhere beneath the caution and habit, something shifts. Not hope, exactly, but resolve. She will go, she will sit where she is told, and she will remain herself. What neither of them realizes yet is that the imbalance between them, so familiar and comfortable, is already under strain. Tonight will not simply expose Elena to a different world. It will quietly dismantle the one Adrian thought was permanent, and the consequences will not announce themselves all at once. They will arrive in glances held too long, in questions never asked, and in the unsettling awareness that something essential has been overlooked all along. Power has a way of revealing itself in the smallest details, and Elena feels it everywhere as the evening approaches. She notices it in the way the driver opens Adrian Vale's door first, in the quiet nod of recognition from the doorman, in how reservations bend around his name without question. She sits beside him in the back seat, hands folded in her lap, watching the city slide past the tinted windows. Adrian checks his phone, responding to messages that shift markets and move numbers most people will never touch. He does not speak to her, not out of rudeness, but because silence has always existed comfortably between them. For him, it is neutral. For Elena, it is a reminder of distance. She understands this gap intimately. Adrian lives in a world where choices are abundant and mistakes are absorbed by layers of protection. He can be abrupt without consequence, distant without explanation. Elena, by contrast, measures every word, every expression, because she knows how easily perception can harden into judgment. She is aware that her presence tonight is conditional, temporary, and entirely dependent on his needs. The restaurant rises above the river like a quiet monument to wealth, its glass walls reflecting the city lights in controlled symmetry. As they step inside, Elena feels the shift immediately. Conversations soften. Heads turn, subtly at first, then, with intent. Adrian is accustomed to this response. He navigates it effortlessly, offering brief acknowledgments, his posture relaxed, his confidence unchallenged. Elena walks half a step behind, matching his pace, absorbing the environment without belonging to it. She notices how people look at him with expectation, curiosity, respect. She notices how they look at her with confusion. At the table, the contrast sharpens. The waiter addresses Adrian directly, reciting specials with practiced reverence. Elena is offered water without eye contact. This is the architecture of power, invisible but precise, and she understands it well enough to know where she fits. Adrian discusses investments, expansion, future leverage. His voice is calm, measured, carrying the assumption that he will be listened to. Elena listens too, not because she needs to, but because it is what she does best. She catches inconsistencies, notes reactions, files them away instinctively. She has always been good at reading rooms, even when rooms do not read her back. What she does not expect is the weight of being seen differently when she lifts her gaze. The glances directed toward her are no longer dismissive. They linger, recalibrate, return. She senses the shift before she understands it. Across the table, an investor pauses mid-sentence, his attention briefly diverted. A woman nearby studies Elena with narrowed curiosity. None of this is loud or explicit. It is quiet, almost imperceptible, but it accumulates. Adrian continues speaking, unaware, until he feels it too, the subtle pull of attention drifting away from him. He glances toward Elena, intending to check that she is following along, and for the first time, he truly sees her. Not as a role, not as an accessory, as a presence. The realization unsettles him, not because she looks different, but because the room responds differently when she breathes, when she shifts in her seat, when she meets another gaze without shrinking. He feels a flicker of irritation he cannot place, followed by something colder, sharper. Possession, perhaps, or the fear of losing control over a narrative he assumed was fixed. Elena feels it too, the imbalance tilting, the invisible line between them thinning. She has spent years on the periphery, watching power operate from a distance. Tonight, she is inside its radius, and the exposure is disorienting. She does not reach for it. She does not perform. She simply exists, and that is enough to disturb. The structure Adrian relies on. He clears his throat, resumes the conversation, but his focus fractures. He notices how others listen when Elena speaks briefly to answer a question he did not direct at her. He notices how her calm confidence unsettles the table more than any bold statement could. The power gap between them has not closed, but it has shifted, revealing a vulnerability he did not anticipate. Elena senses the change and feels both exhilaration and restraint. She knows this moment is fragile, easily dismissed as novelty. Still, something fundamental has been exposed. The hierarchy they both accepted without question is no longer intact, and neither of them knows how to restore it. As the night continues, the tension deepens, quiet and unresolved, setting the stage for a reckoning neither of them can avoid. By the time dessert arrives, the evening has taken on a different temperature, one neither Elena nor Adrian names aloud. The conversation continues, polite and polished, but something underneath it has shifted, like a current changing direction without warning. Adrian feels it as a tightening in his chest every time someone looks at Elena before looking back at him. It is unfamiliar, unwelcome, and impossible to ignore. He has always understood influence as something he commands, not something that drifts. Elena feels it as well, the subtle pressure of attention that does not retreat when she lowers her gaze. She answers questions carefully, never overstepping, yet no longer shrinking. It surprises her how natural that feels. She is not performing. She is simply responding, and the room rewards her for it. Adrian notices the ease with which she navigates these exchanges, how her observations are precise, her tone measured. He wonders, distantly, how long this has been there without his awareness. When the check is settled and chairs slide back, the group disperses with handshakes and promises. Elena rises, smoothing her dress, ready to return to her usual place, half a step behind him. Instead, Adrian pauses. The hesitation is brief, but she notices. Outside, the night air is cooler, carrying the scent of the river and city lights. The driver opens the door again, and once more, Adrian is offered priority. He steps aside this time, an instinctive gesture he does not fully understand, allowing Elena to enter first. The action is small, almost unnoticeable, yet it sends a ripple through both of them. The ride back is quiet. Adrian watches the city reflect across the glass, his thoughts disordered in a way that irritates him. He prides himself on clarity, on knowing what he wants and how to obtain it. Tonight has complicated that. Elena sits with her hands folded, replaying moments in her mind, the glances, the pauses, the strange sense of balance returning to her body. She does not mistake this for acceptance. She knows attention can be temporary, fickle. Still, something has been set in motion. At the building, they part without comment. Elena thanks the driver, steps onto the sidewalk, and watches the car disappear into traffic. Adrian returns to his penthouse, loosening his tie, the silence louder than usual. He pours a drink he does not finish and stands by the window longer than he intends. He thinks about the way Elena held herself at the table, about the questions she answered with quiet confidence. He realizes with a jolt that he does not know her at all. The thought unsettles him more than any negotiation gone wrong. Elena reaches her apartment and closes the door behind her, leaning against it for a moment as if grounding herself. Her phone vibrates with a message from Adrian's office account, short and impersonal, thanking her for the evening and reminding her of an early meeting. She exhales, the formality both reassuring and disappointing. The next morning, the office hums as usual. Elena arrives early, resumes her place, and prepares for the day. Adrian emerges from his office precisely on time, greeting no one in particular. To anyone watching, nothing has changed. But Elena notices that when he passes her desk, he slows. His eyes flicker toward her, then away, as if recalibrating. Throughout the day, their interactions are efficient, clipped, familiar. Yet beneath them runs a current of unspoken awareness. Adrian catches himself listening when she speaks, not for errors, but for tone. Elena catches herself holding his gaze an extra second before looking down. Neither acknowledges it. That afternoon, an email arrives announcing a formal gala the following week, a public event with press, donors, and scrutiny. Adrian reads it once, then again. He needs a companion. The name that comes to mind is not the one he expects. He closes the message without responding, unsettled by the implication. Elena, meanwhile, scans her calendar, marking the gala as just another event to coordinate, another obligation to manage from the sidelines. She does not know yet that the fragile balance established at dinner is about to be tested under brighter lights and sharper eyes. What passed quietly between them will not remain contained. The structures that define their roles have already cracked, and the pressure of public space will force something to give. Neither of them is prepared for how exposed they will feel when the world watches what they have only begun to see in each other. The days leading up to the gala stretch longer than Elena expects, each one layered with a tension that never quite surfaces but never disappears either. At the office, routines resume their familiar rhythm, yet every small interaction feels newly charged. Adrian begins to notice things he once overlooked, the precision of Elena's notes, the way she anticipates problems before they reach him, the quiet authority in her voice when she speaks to executives who assume she is insignificant. He does not comment on it. He simply adjusts, asking her opinion more often, listening when she offers it. To Elena, the shift is subtle but unmistakable. She senses his attention the way one senses a change in weather, not dramatic, but impossible to ignore. It makes her careful. She does not want to mistake awareness for acceptance. The gala looms, announced in meetings and emails, its importance emphasized again and again. It is not just another event. It is public, photographed, dissected. Adrian is expected to arrive with someone who reflects his status, someone polished and impressive. Elena assumes her role will be logistical, coordinating schedules, handling press lists, ensuring everything runs smoothly from behind the scenes. She is surprised when Adrian steps out of his office late one afternoon and stops at her desk. His tone is even, professional, but there is a hesitation beneath it. "I need you at the gala," he says, not as an instruction this time, but as a statement that invites response. Elena looks up, her pen pausing mid-sentence. For a moment, neither speaks. She understands the implication immediately. This is not about filling a seat. This is about visibility. She nods once, slowly, and returns to her work. The acceptance costs her more than she expects. That evening, Elena walks home instead of taking the bus, letting the distance ground her. She thinks about the eyes that will follow her, the assumptions that will form before she opens her mouth. She thinks about the way Adrian looked unsettled at the dinner and wonders what role she is being asked to play now. Not an assistant. Not exactly. Something undefined, exposed. Adrian spends the same evening restless in his penthouse, reviewing reports he has already approved. He tells himself the decision is practical. Elena understands the business, the people, the stakes. She is efficient, reliable. He does not examine the other reason, the one that tightens his chest when he imagines her standing beside him under bright lights. As the gala approaches, preparations intensify. Elena coordinates outfits for executives, schedules fittings, fields calls from publicists. She does not mention her own attire. On the morning of the event, Adrian notices this omission and asks about it, his voice sharper than intended. Elena meets his gaze, steady. "I will handle it," she says simply. There is no apology, no explanation. The confidence in her tone unsettles him. That afternoon, she leaves the office early for the first time in years. The empty desk catches Adrian's attention more than it should. He finds himself checking the time repeatedly, anticipating an arrival he cannot predict. When evening comes, the venue glows with anticipation, cameras flashing, voices rising. Adrian arrives first, as expected, navigating the entrance with practiced ease. He takes his place, answering questions, offering measured smiles. Yet his focus drifts toward the doors, waiting. Elena arrives quietly, without announcement. She steps inside and pauses, allowing herself a breath. She is not transformed by spectacle or excess. Her appearance is deliberate, restrained, a reflection of herself rather than an escape from it. She feels the room register her presence before she sees Adrian. The attention is immediate and disorienting. Adrian turns at the shift in energy and freezes. For a moment, the noise fades. He recognizes her and does not, all at once. The woman crossing the floor carries herself with a calm assurance he has never associated with his assistant. His reaction is visceral, unfiltered. Elena catches his expression and understands something fundamental has changed. The space between them, carefully managed and unspoken, collapses under the weight of public scrutiny. As they stand facing each other, the world watching, neither knows how to return to the safety of their old roles. The gala has not yet begun, but the quiet tension between them has reached a point of no return, promising consequences neither can fully grasp yet. The moment stretches longer than either of them expects, a suspended breath in a room built for spectacle. Elena stops a few steps away from Adrian, close enough that she can see the uncertainty flicker across his face before he masks it. Cameras flash nearby, voices murmur, and yet an island of quiet forms between them. This is the emotional turning point neither of them planned for, the instant where retreat becomes impossible. Adrian recovers first, offering his arm with a composure that feels practiced, almost automatic. Elena hesitates, just long enough for him to notice, then accepts. The contact is light, formal, but it sends a jolt through both of them. As they move together into the heart of the gala, attention follows, sharpening, intensifying. Elena feels exposed in a way she has never allowed herself to be. Every step forward feels like a declaration she did not rehearse. Adrian senses the shift in how people look at them, not at him alone anymore, but at the space they occupy together. It unsettles him. He has always been the fixed point in any room, the axis others revolve around. Tonight, that balance is altered. Conversations stall as they pass. Whispers trail behind them. Elena keeps her expression composed, but inside, she is bracing. She knows how quickly admiration can turn into scrutiny. Adrian introduces her to investors, donors, board members, and for the first time, he says her name with intention, not convenience. Elena Moore, he says, and the words land differently now, carrying weight. She responds calmly, meeting eyes, answering questions with clarity and restraint. She does not overshare. She does not diminish herself. Adrian watches, astonished by how naturally she commands respect without demanding it. The realization strikes him with uncomfortable clarity. This capability, this presence, has always existed. He simply never looked. As the evening unfolds, the tension between them deepens into something fragile and volatile. Adrian becomes acutely aware of every glance directed toward Elena, every smile that lingers a second too long. He feels a surge of irritation that surprises him, sharp and possessive, followed by guilt. He does not own her attention. He never did. Elena notices his reactions as well, the subtle stiffening of his posture, the way his hand remains near the small of her back when others approach. She understands the shift for what it is, not desire yet, but awareness edged with fear. Halfway through the evening, they step away from the crowd, seeking quieter air near the balcony. The city stretches below them, lights scattered like constellations. For a moment, neither speaks. Adrian breaks the silence first, his voice lower, stripped of its usual authority. "You were remarkable tonight," he says. The compliment feels inadequate even as he offers it. Elena turns to him, studying his face. She does not smile. "I was always capable," she replies softly. The truth in her words lands hard. Adrian nods, absorbing the rebuke without defense. He realizes this is not about validation. It is about recognition, delayed and costly. The music swells behind them, signaling a return to the program. Before they move, Elena adds quietly, "I cannot go back to being invisible after this." Adrian meets her gaze, the weight of the moment pressing in. He understands that whatever is unfolding between them cannot be contained within their old roles. The gala continues, but something fundamental has shifted. When Charlotte King arrives late, impeccably dressed and smiling, the contrast is immediate. She approaches Adrian with familiarity, her eyes flicking briefly toward Elena, assessing. The air tightens. Charlotte greets Adrian warmly, then turns to Elena with polite curiosity. "And you are," she begins. Before Elena can answer, Adrian speaks. "She is with me," he says, the emphasis unmistakable. The declaration is small, but its implications ripple outward. Elena feels the line being drawn, not by her, but by him, and it makes her uneasy. Charlotte's smile tightens, her gaze sharpening as she recalibrates. The rest of the evening unfolds under this new tension, glances exchanged, assumptions forming, alliances shifting. Elena senses that she has crossed an invisible threshold, one that cannot be uncrossed. As the gala draws to a close, applause filling the hall, Adrian stands beside her, his thoughts racing. He knows this moment will demand something from him soon, a choice, an acknowledgement, a reckoning. Elena feels it too, the certainty that whatever happens next will define whether this awakening leads to respect or regret. The night ends without resolution, but with a promise hanging between them, heavy and unavoidable, urging the story forward into deeper conflict and consequence. The fallout begins quietly the next morning, the way. Reputations often fracture before anyone notices the cracks. Elena arrives at the office to a subtle but unmistakable shift in atmosphere. Conversations pause when she passes. Eyes linger, curious and speculative. The gala photos have already begun circulating online, headlines praising Adrian Vale's presence and questioning the identity of the woman at his side. Elena Moore's name appears in captions, followed by titles that shrink her into novelty. Assistant. Surprise. Mystery. She feels the weight of it settle on her shoulders as she takes her seat. Adrian enters later than usual, his expression controlled but distant. He does not acknowledge the looks or the whispers. He asks for reports, schedules meetings, resumes command as if the night before never happened. To Elena, the return to normal feels like erasure. Throughout the day, Charlotte King's presence becomes impossible to ignore. She calls the office twice, then appears unannounced, her confidence undiminished. She greets Adrian warmly, familiarity evident, then turns to Elena with a polite smile that does not reach her eyes. "You made quite an impression last night," Charlotte says lightly, her tone laced with implication. Elena nods, keeping her response measured. The exchange is brief, but the tension lingers. Adrian watches from his office doorway, conflicted. He feels the pull of expectation, the pressure to clarify narratives he allowed to form. When Charlotte asks him to lunch, he agrees, telling himself it is practical. Elena hears about it from an assistant down the hall before she hears it from him. The knowledge stings more than she expects. It confirms her fear that visibility is temporary, conditional. At lunch, Charlotte speaks openly, her words precise. She asks Adrian what Elena represents, whether this new attention is intentional or merely convenient. Adrian bristles at the question, defensive in a way that surprises him. He insists there is nothing to explain, that Elena is an employee who performed admirably. The explanation feels hollow even to him. Charlotte studies his face, recognizing uncertainty. She warns him gently about optics, about blurring lines that could invite scrutiny. Adrian listens, but his thoughts drift to Elena, to the way she stood her ground on the balcony. When he returns to the office, he finds Elena already buried in work. He hesitates, then asks her to step into his office. The door closes softly behind them. He thanks her for handling the media inquiries, praises her professionalism. Elena listens, waiting. When he stops, she speaks, her voice calm but edged with restraint. "I need to know where I stand," she says. "Not in public. Here." The question hangs between them. Adrian answers with care, choosing words that preserve order rather than truth. "You are an invaluable part of this company," he says. The response lands like a dismissal. Elena nods, absorbing the message. That evening, rumors intensify. Blogs speculate about favoritism. Colleagues whisper about ambition and appearances. Elena reads none of it, but she feels its effects. Invitations dry up. Smiles tighten. She realizes the cost of being seen without being claimed. Adrian senses her withdrawal and mistakes it for compliance. He convinces himself the storm will pass if he maintains distance. Then Charlotte hosts a private dinner, inviting key investors and extending an invitation to Adrian and Elena both. The intent is unmistakable. The dinner becomes a stage. Charlotte positions herself beside Adrian, her laughter easy, her touch familiar. Elena sits across from them, watching the performance with growing clarity. She sees how narratives are shaped, how she is framed as a momentary curiosity rather than a constant presence. When Charlotte makes a pointed remark about loyalty and boundaries, Elena understands the message. Later, in the quiet of the hallway, Elena confronts Adrian. Her voice is low, controlled. "I will not compete for a place I was never offered," she says. Adrian protests, insisting there is nothing to compete for, that he is trying to protect everyone involved. The words sound hollow. Elena shakes her head. "Protection without recognition is just control," she replies. She leaves before he can respond. The next morning, Adrian arrives to find Elena's desk cleared. A letter waits on his desk, concise and professional. She thanks him for the opportunity and submits her resignation, effective immediately. Adrian reads it twice, then a third time, the finality sinking in. The office hum continues around him, indifferent. For the first time, he feels the full weight of his hesitation, the cost of choosing order over honesty. Elena walks out of the building without looking back, her future uncertain, but her resolve intact. As the doors close behind her, Adrian understands that the conflict he avoided has reached its peak. What remains is not control, but consequence, and the realization that some losses cannot be managed away. The days after Elena leaves stretch into something heavy and unfamiliar for Adrian Vale, a silence that no amount of meetings can fill. Her absence is immediate and precise. Calendars falter. Conversations lose their rhythm. Problems surface that she once intercepted quietly. Adrian notices how often he reaches for her name before remembering there is no one there to answer. He tells himself it is operational inconvenience, nothing more, yet the emptiness follows him beyond the office. Late one evening, he opens a folder she left behind by mistake, thin and unassuming. Inside are sketches, charcoal lines forming faces that seem to look back at him with unsettling honesty. The title on one page reads "Women Who Were Never Looked At." The realization lands with a chill. He understands now that her resignation was not an emotional outburst, but a boundary drawn with care. She did not leave to be noticed. She left to remain whole. Elena, meanwhile, moves through her new days cautiously, renting a small studio space on the edge of the city, returning to work she once abandoned. The uncertainty is real. So is the relief. She wakes early, sketches late, and sells a piece here and there, enough to survive. She avoids social media, avoids news about Vale Holdings, avoids the ache that still surfaces when she thinks of him. She believes distance will settle the feelings she never named. Adrian decides against calling. He understands that words would be inadequate, that apologies without action would only repeat the pattern. Instead, he does something unfamiliar. He listens. He reads every sketch, studies every line, follows the trail of galleries Elena once bookmarked in her notes. He uses his influence quietly, not to claim her, but to create space. Weeks later, a small gallery announces an exhibition featuring emerging artists, a modest opening with no press release bearing his name. On opening night, Elena arrives expecting little, prepared to stand unnoticed again. The room is intimate, softly lit. Her work lines the walls, framed simply, respectfully. She feels seen without being exposed. As guests arrive, she recognizes the careful curation, the absence of spectacle. Then she notices Adrian standing near the back, not approaching, not commanding attention. He looks different without the armor of authority, uncertain, waiting. Their eyes meet briefly. He does not step forward. He does not interrupt her conversations or claim credit. He lets the evening belong to her. Later, when the room thins, Elena approaches him. The air between them is calm, but charged. Adrian speaks first, his voice low and measured. "I did not come to ask you back," he says. "I came to see you where you chose to stand." Elena studies him, searching for expectation. She finds none. He continues, "I was wrong to protect order instead of truth. I will not ask you to return to a place that diminished you. What I want is permission to begin again, without titles, without advantage." He does not reach for her. He does not promise outcomes. The restraint is the gesture. Elena feels the weight of the choice settle in her chest. This is the quiet climax, the moment where loud declarations would cheapen what is at stake. She thinks of the gala lights, the whispers, the resignation letter written with shaking hands. She thinks of this room, her work on the walls, her name spoken without qualification. "I cannot be invisible again," she says softly. Adrian nods. "I know." Silence stretches, not uncomfortable, but deliberate. Finally, Elena speaks. "We can talk," she says. Slowly, on equal ground. Adrian accepts without argument. As they stand there, no one watching, no narrative forming yet, the decision feels colder than romance and warmer than apology. It is an action chosen over a performance. Outside, the city continues indifferent. Inside, something fragile stabilizes. The evening ends without promises, but with alignment. As Elena locks the gallery later that night, she feels a quiet certainty settle. Whatever comes next will be shaped by choice, not imbalance. Adrian walks away understanding that redemption is not a gift to be claimed, but a discipline to be practiced. The story does not close. It opens, measured and deliberate, leaving space for what they might build if they continue to choose honesty over control. Time passes in a way that feels gentler after that night, no longer marked by urgency, but by intention. Adrian and Elena meet occasionally, always on neutral ground, a quiet coffee shop, a park bench overlooking the river, places where neither title nor expectation dominates the space. They talk about work, about art, about the habits that shaped them long before they met. Adrian listens more than he speaks, learning the discipline of restraint. Elena observes him with cautious openness, noting the consistency of his actions rather than the elegance of his words. There is no rush to define what they are becoming. The absence of pressure feels like a form of respect. At Vale Holdings, changes begin subtly. Adrian restructures teams, decentralizes authority, and creates initiatives that elevate voices once overlooked. He does not announce these shifts as penance. He allows them to stand on their own merit. Colleagues notice the difference, not in spectacle, but in tone. Elena hears about it secondhand and feels no need to return. Her world has expanded in a different direction. Her work gains attention on its own terms, invitations arriving without his name attached. One afternoon, months later, Adrian attends another exhibition, this time with press present and cameras flashing. He stays in the background again, content to watch Elena speak about her work with clarity and calm. When a reporter asks how it feels to be supported by powerful allies, Elena answers without hesitation. "Support is only meaningful when it does not define you," she says. Adrian smiles faintly, understanding the boundaries she maintains. After the exhibition, they walk together along the river, the city reflecting in the water like a softened memory. Adrian stops and turns to her, not with a proposal or a promise, but with a question that carries weight. Would you walk with me forward? He asks, not as my assistant, not as an image, but as yourself. Elena considers him carefully. She thinks of the woman she was when she learned to disappear, and the woman she is now, standing in her own light. I already am myself, she replies gently. If you can walk beside that, then yes. The answer is neither dramatic nor definitive, but it is real. They continue walking, their pace unhurried, the future open but grounded. The story does not end with applause or declarations. It settles into something quieter, more durable. Elena does not become a symbol. Adrian does not become a savior. They become two people who learned, at different costs, the value of seeing and being seen. The final image lingers on a gallery wall months later, a new piece added to Elena's collection. It depicts two figures standing side by side, not touching, not turning away, simply present. Beneath it, a small placard reads, "Visibility is not about beauty or power. It is about attention, respect, and choice." As the camera pulls back, the message resonates beyond their story. How often do we overlook the people closest to us because we are too certain of the roles we assign them? How often does recognition arrive only when something changes outwardly, instead of inwardly? This story reminds us that true worth does not appear suddenly. It waits patiently to be acknowledged. And sometimes, the greatest transformation is not becoming someone new, but allowing ourselves to finally see what was always there. If this story moved you or made you reflect on someone you may have overlooked, take a moment to show your support. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need this reminder today. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories that explore depth, growth, and the quiet power of change. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again in the next story.